Welcome, everyone. Today, we're actually going to be diving into some pretty uncharted territory, talking about some things prior to 2020 no one in our entire world would have thought would be a relevant topic. So, there's obviously no clear direction as to what the right answer is, but here on Husa Campus Health First Wellness Wednesday streaming, we're going to see what we can do to ease our peers' anxiety by answering the questions. Back on campus, what now? My name is Cherie Simpson, and I'm this year's Director of Campus Health. I'm also joined by two others from my department.
Hi, my name is Naja Woodards, and I'm the Associate Director of Campus Health.
Hi, my name is Cambria Sanders, and I'm the Mental Health Coordinator for HUSA.
We're also joined by a licensed clinical professional counselor, Ms. Jermaine Graves. I'd also like to give her the opportunity right now to introduce herself.
Yes. Hi, everyone. My name is Mrs. Jermaine Graves. I'm also a graduate of Howard University, so I'm very honored to be back in this, in this realm, being able to provide some helpful information along the way. So thank you all. I have been a licensed clinical professional counselor for the past 7 years. I worked in the mental health field pretty much my entire career, and I've worked in group home settings, educational settings, and I also have been in private practice for the past 7 years as well.
And lastly, joining us in this discussion is Nellisha, and she's CNAHS Health and Wellness Co-Director.
Hi, everybody. My name is Nellisha Leonce, like she said. I'm currently a sophomore nutritional science major, bio and chem double minor at Howard University. And like Cherie said, I'm currently the position of co-director of the College of Nursing Allied Health and Sciences Student Council, Health and Wellness Department.
All right, so let's get into it. So the stress in college seem to go hand in hand, especially with the sudden emptying of campuses across the country and the United States. The sudden isolation from peers and the sudden confinement of being packed together with our parents and full of worry about what the future holds, and just general anxiety for many students across the nation in the past 5 months.
Yeah, so I saw a survey recently by Active Minds, which is a mental health advocacy group focused on college students. And they said that 1 in 5 students are actually suffering with their mental health during this pandemic. So what do you guys predict will be some of the difficulties that students will experience going back to campus?
Yeah, I would like to say there's going to be quite a few difficulties going on. I mean, just getting used to the new normal. I know we're kind of going into the second phase of COVID, so to speak, so people are getting used to our new normal, quote unquote. But I think overall, like socializing won't be the same on campus. Students may be worried about high traffic areas, whether it's going to the cafeteria or having to go to the bookstore. What is that going to look like? And just resident, college life in general is going to change across the board. We're used to the HBCU experience. How would that play out moving forward? We have our fraternities and sororities. That social life and just being inducted into those programs. And also, we're going to miss Howard homecoming. That's been a big highlight. Everybody's experience at Howard. Yes, and then study abroad programs, they may be limited if and when we're able to get back to that. But just, students in general, just really worrying about those social interactions and that social life and what being back on campus is going to look like. So it's a lot of challenges that are going to be intertwined and going back this year.
I think to your point as well, first and foremost, I feel like there's just going to be a severe lack of distrust, unfortunately, between both students and faculty. Just keeping in mind that, everyone is coming from different areas. So someone might not necessarily be comfortable essentially with like being in such a social setting, and just like the unpredictability of the virus as a whole. And I think overall, in terms of what's going to be most difficult, I feel like just the adjustment from being at home, being quarantined, keeping to ourselves. I feel like that's going to be the most difficult in terms of transitioning back to campus, because a lot of us, we're going to have to like relearn how to become a part of the collective again, going to have to relearn how to, function properly in a classroom again for some people who are in classes. So I just feel like just the whole transition is going to be very iffy. And like you said, it's just definitely going to change the trajectory of just like college life as a whole this year.
The whole transition with moving back onto campus, or even if you're staying at home, just moving back that you're doing work at home again. There's like a lot of conversations that need to be had, and just the idea of like mental health, like culturally holding a negative stigma within like the Black community, within Black homes, and majority of Howard students are Black. So just before students get back onto campus, like what are some ways they can like establish like having these uncomfortable conversations with like their parents or their friends, just to like get help before school starts and then hopefully continues during the semester?
Mhm. I will say, in all honesty, we've had a negative stigmatism, in the Black community and communities of color when it comes to mental health. But that stigma is slowly but surely changing. People are becoming a little more open now to receiving therapy and counseling services. So I think it's really important for students to, try to express to their family members or their friends, hey, things are a little different now, and being able to identify what type of support that they may need when they go back, whether it's a weekly phone call or check-in, or, a visit from your family and friends so often, or making plans to, go home and visit if that's a possibility. But really being able to identify what they need or what they feel, is important for them going back into the, to the university setting. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think also just with like learning how to communicate, one thing would be learning like people's love language, like learning if maybe if some going to go see someone is the best way to like show your comfort and check in on them, do that. Or and if they can't do that, the phone call or sending a gift, simply just finding a way to communicate with that person and making sure that they feel seen and heard will definitely help and help people get through it.
I feel like, the question, how are you, isn't necessarily given so much emphasis as it should be on both sides. So like, I feel like when we're asking, oh, how are you? Just like, oh, how are you? Not necessarily putting as much care as we should into the actual question. Like, okay, how are you really? And on the flip side of that, when asked, I feel like, I know I do it, maybe you guys do it too. I know I'm not always 100% honest when I'm asked, oh, how are you? And I feel like just that in itself, in terms of dismantling that discomfort, that in itself is really important, because, okay, if I'm asking, okay, how are you? Now it's going to shed light towards more conversation about, okay, why do you feel like that? How can we, help you feel better if you are feeling a negative type of way? And I also feel like that's going to stream, and open different doors to having those more difficult conversations regarding mental health and mental stability.
Something I've noticed when you ask someone like, how are you doing? We do tend to lie, like you said, or kind of fabricate the truth. So something I've noticed that helps is like offering how I'm feeling or how I'm doing, just so they can see like I genuinely mean like, how are you doing? Not just, I'm just checking in because I feel obligated to. So I think like offering how you feel is definitely a great way to extend the olive branch.
Yeah, most definitely. And so, like so many schools like Howard, will be offering hybrid learning environments, which is both face-to-face interaction and instructions, along with online instructions that are provided and consistent, easy to follow schedules throughout the year. So it'll definitely be interesting to see how going back to school will look.
Yeah, definitely. And once we get back to school, obviously as students, it's going to be a huge concern for us trying to balance everything in life and in our personal life with also our education. We definitely need the classroom to be a safe space for us so we can thrive as students. So how do you guys think that professors can help to provide this type of environment, this type of safe space?
I think they can offer maybe virtual office hours, or even have like an open chat platform where students can kind of, be able to ask whatever questions that they need to ask, or even get creative with it. Maybe they can have some virtual lunches, which might take away that official, pressure of being, toe to toe with your professor, but make it a more relaxed environment where students feel a little more comfortable asking whatever questions they need and, seeking the type of help or guidance that they need.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And then off the top of my head, like I just think about recording lectures. So during the spring, that was actually one of the methods that one of my professors utilized, and it helped so much because she had students who were they had to go back home to Nigeria. She had another student who was in California, so it would just be extremely helpful for students like myself who are international or may reside on the West Coast, just to have access, the same access to the materials that students who are in person or are on the East Coast have. Also, like a lot of students, they may have to take care of like elderly relatives, provide childcare for younger siblings, or just get a part-time job, because that's like a big thing for students right now, especially with the economic like situation of their parents, not only their parents themselves. So just to make ends meet and just to also manage your academic life, just recording the lecture could be such a simple but useful tool for everyone.
Yeah, I think it's important that students get into the habit of also having conversations with their professors, because even simply like you said, recorded lectures, that has a great benefit for a lot of students that may be residing in areas that aren't in the same time zone as a professor, along with maybe establishing in the beginning of the class, in the beginning of the semester, having check-ins and making those more frequent than maybe they usually were in the past, or if they were ever in the past. Because we can't predict what's going to happen this semester, but it's important that the professors always know what we need as students and that no one is left behind or not taken care of. And sometimes we do have to take that initiative ourselves.
So that's a really excellent point, Naja. We definitely need to make sure that we have that constant means of communication with our professor so that our learning environment, improves over time. But for some students, they may feel uncomfortable or have concerns about speaking up and having that type of relationship with their professor. So do you guys have any tips on how to handle that anxiety about speaking up, since it won't be as easy as it was before?
I think if students have trouble speaking up, maybe they can just send an email to the professor instead. If you can't like have that face-to-face, conversation, if that's too uncomfortable, or even having maybe a virtual one-on-one with the professor. I don't know how well this will work in, the university setting, but I know, sometimes social groups and stuff has the Group Meet app, where everybody is intertwined in text messages or what have you, and they can ask, whatever questions they need to ask and get answered in that setting. So just trying to be creative, with ways to be able to communicate with the professor.
I think to that point as well, I think it's really important to note that our professors are literally here for us. And in terms of like whatever method, you might want to use in terms of, whether it be in person, office hours, leaving a note, writing an email, whatever the case may be, in terms of like combating that anxiety, I think it's really important to remember, okay, we're paying our tuition, right? So we're paying for these resources, and our professors are resources that, we need to utilize and take advantage of. And just like really realizing and like honing in on the fact that their job is literally to help us succeed. And so in terms of, being anxious about talking to them, maybe you might have a TA, maybe there might be another student in the classroom that's closer with the professor that you resonate with. And like you said, writing an email and just like trying to work around, because at the end of the day, we all do need the help. We are paying for the education. So, it's really vital that we're taking advantage of all those resources as well.
Yeah, definitely just stemming off of what you just said, like just first understanding that this is a new situation for everyone. They're dealing with this as people, just as how we are dealing with this as people. Just maybe that acknowledgement, like you said, just breaking down the barriers of understanding that yes, there are professors, like they are supposed to do this. So it's okay. Like as people, this is their job, and as people, we are students, and this is our responsibility to ask these questions. May just break down some of like the uncomfortable feelings with doing these things.
Yeah, and another aspect of this too is just the learning environment in itself, and whether people choose to stay home or who will stay and live in campus will be very different. So what are some tips for students to manage their education regardless of where they're living?
I think just making sure whether you're at home or whether you're on campus, making sure that you have a dedicated space dedicated workspace strictly for doing your schoolwork, making sure there's no distractions going on. I know sometimes if you're at home, you may have siblings, that are running around. But just, speaking with the family, letting them know, hey, this is my study time. And of course, like creating a daily schedule for themselves to include the study hour and to get their coursework and stuff done is going to be really important. And knowing or getting to know some of your classmates, that way you can create some study groups if needed. And also being in touch like with your academic advisors, whether you're on campus or not, you should be able to reach your academic advisor, just to get some feedback if needed and to get some additional resources. For example, if you need tutoring or some additional resources regarding reading, math, or whatever the case may be. But really reaching out, and getting those supports that are needed. And one of the things I always stress is self-care, making sure you're scheduling some breaks in there for yourself, because school can be very, very, stressful and it can be trying at times. So just making sure you have a little bit of leisure or pleasure time for yourself just to unwind and de-stress along the way.
Definitely.
Mm-hmm.
Especially the self-care part. Like I make sure I have like a 30-minute block in every day because I'm involved in like a lot of things, but I don't want to overexert myself, so I can't even give to all of these things that I choose to be a part of. So yeah.
Yeah, and especially with getting to know your peers that are in the class too. I think I've noticed too that sometimes people only start talking to other people once there's a problem or once there's an issue, but we're all in the same boat at this point. So we might as well get to know each other and help each other along the way before it is too late or before it gets hard. And also knowing our advisors as well, because if you are at home and you can't access them directly or in person, definitely being able to have that establishing a relationship beforehand. So once they see your name pop up in an email or however else you're communicating, they'll know like what you need and they'll know how to help you even easier.
And to your point about self-care too, I feel like, some people think like self-care is just like, do a face mask or getting all dolled up or whatever the case may be, but literally anything can be self-care, whether, a face mask is your thing, and okay, yoga, working out, meditation, prayer. I feel like, so many different things can be encompassed around self-care, and just taking, you said 30 minutes to yourself, literally that, that little time frame every day, really just getting your mind right, really just getting yourself centered is really important.
Yeah, so like you guys all said, self-care, relying on your peers, and like setting boundaries with your family if you are staying home are all really good ways to, thrive academically. But whether you're staying home or going back to campus, I think it's really important to remember that Howard has an action plan. Well, that's like their main priorities to keep us safe and allow us to be successful. But it's also important to remember that nothing is set in stone, if that makes sense. Over time, we will learn better ways to communicate with each other. We will improve like our academic environment. So that's kind of comforting to know. When you look back at spring semester, everything was so chaotic and things had to change overnight. But now for this fall semester, we've had months, the universities had months to kind of plan and get things situated. So over time, things will get better and can be very stressful, but it'll definitely get better over time.
Yeah. Like I myself, I'm so thankful that Howard has gone hybrid, giving students and like expressing that it's a choice whether you would like to come back for whatever reason. My reason is a health reason, but yeah, I myself will not be returning to campus this fall. And like moving away from the schoolwork aspect, like what we were talking about before, just like my social life has been affected so much for the past 5 months. And like I just know that it definitely will continue to be affected for the next 3 to 4 months. During this time, I have been forced to like engage with others like purely over the internet. I even had my birthday party over Zoom a couple months ago. So yeah, so like there are fun ways for us to stay like engaged with our friends, whether it be Twitter, group chats, Instagram. but it can be so draining so fast. Like, how do we make sure that social media doesn't affect our mental health while also like keeping a balance between online and reality? Yeah.
Yeah, I think you have to limit your social media time, whether it's Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, Snapchat, whatever the case may be. Definitely put a limit on it, whatever that, adequate limit looks like for you. Definitely not to exceed 2 hours a day, So if you need to do a little bit in the mornings or a little bit in the evenings or afternoons, just to kind of get your time in, of course, by all means, but just making sure that we're not spending all day and hours upon hours on social media. And I know sometimes with everybody's opinions and perspective going on, sometimes that can kind of impact our beliefs, so we have to be really mindful and careful how much we're taking in each day.
Yeah, remembering that not to give in to the pressure, honestly, because I think even like with this amount of time that we spent alone and having to interact on the social media has been draining, but I have to like remember that it's just that pressure I don't have to fall into it. I can definitely step back, I can take my breaks, and those people that I want to speak to and communicate with, like they'll still be there. Like we'll still be able to communicate once I'm back, maybe 30 minutes or a day later.
I think something to add to that, sometimes like if you really feel like you can't, like, oh, I have to check Instagram, I have to check Snapchat, sometimes I like to just sign out completely, like log out of the app, so that way when I go back to it, I have to put in my credentials to really log in and check what's going on. Because like considering everything that is going on in the world right now, social media can be, have more of a negative impact on our mental health than a positive. So I just think like sometimes it really is important to just, tune it all out, plug out real quick, and then when you're ready, come back in.
Yes, absolutely. Just to piggyback on that a little bit, even if you have to track your hours, I know a lot of the smart devices, smartphones and stuff, you can track how much time you're spending on the social media platforms. And once you really see how much time you're spending, then it's a wake up call a little bit. So, definitely tracking your hours, setting an alarm or something just to say, okay, I've been on here long enough. But I do definitely feel like taking that, unplugging altogether is very helpful. Mm-hmm.
I know I've kind of made it a habit over time. I'm sure some other people can relate to it. It's like my phone is the first thing that I look at when I wake up in the morning. So during this pandemic, I've really tried to learn not to do that. Especially being young, Black, and college students, a lot is going on in the media, and that's not something you should see the first thing you wake up in the morning. So just try, like, I'll look at my text messages, but just trying to like not go straight to social media. But it is a great way to stay engaged when we are apart. When we go back to campus, obviously we still want to be engaged with our peers, even though we do have the social distance. So what are some good like social activities that we can engage in back on campus while still maintaining that social distancing?
Yes, I was thinking things that, still allow you to put some space in between yourselves. I know tennis is a good way to get some exercise in and still engage in some activities. Maybe some outdoor yoga, where you can spread yourself, apart a little bit, but still enjoy that social company as well. Things like taking a walk at the park, bowling. Another good DC thing is maybe bike riding. DC has little bike riding platforms, here and there throughout the city. So that might be a good outdoor activity just in terms of, getting a little social time in there as well, but still keeping your distance.
I just like to end like this question with like an actual action call for like all student leaders. Like now is a great time for student organizations to create and host programs for students to take part in virtually or in person if there are lots of persons going back to campus while maintaining the 6 feet apart rule if that becomes permitted. Like there should be no reason that students feel that they're bored enough to just go and do all the wild things in all the clubs or bars or whatever situation is open when we get back to campus. It is our time to act, our time to make sure that we engage with our fellow peers and just make sure that we keep everyone safe and do our part.
I think another thing is, what are things that students who are freshmen and are just entering or transferring to their new university, what are things that can help them stay engaged or have a better experience or just something close to that college experience they're meant to have?
Yeah, definitely like what Mega said earlier, that the whole homecoming experience that was such a vital part of the Howard culture is not going to be there anymore. But just knowing that Howard has announced that there will be like a virtual homecoming, try to make like the best they can out of that situation. And then just going back to this pandemic can't last forever, and their Howard experience will be 4 years. So if not next year, or the year after, it will happen, and they will have the best experience that Howard has to offer. I believe just that optimistic view.
And to add on to your point, I know a lot of organizations and groups are doing a lot of, emphasizing a lot of virtual activities. So that in itself, it's not, it might not be the actual thing, but at least it's something. And not just what you said earlier too about really, getting to know each other. I feel like this pandemic is definitely putting everybody in a position to, whether you like it or not, now you're able to make that connection with other people. So even though we might not be able to go to Bliss, or we might not be able to have homecoming, now it's really going to force us to really become connected amongst each other.
And even with that expectation, we still at the same time don't want to fall into pressure of having to hang out with people in person as well, because we do need to still consider our safety and health throughout this pandemic, whether you are at home or on campus. We don't want to slip back into ignoring the social protocols or health protocols, or actually like making people feel worried about their friendships or connections if they're not in person. So Ms. Graves, I was wondering, how can young students and young adults deal with the pressure to break social distancing and quarantine to socialize with people in person?
I always say communication is key. You really have to let people know how you feel. If you're not comfortable, being, and even if we're 6 feet apart, you still may not be comfortable. So you really have to be able to communicate that, with others. Of course, being vigilant, continue to wear our masks and face shields, and making sure we maintain that 6 feet distance apart. One of the things I'm going to put out there that I've seen before, and you all can explore with the officials that be at Howard. They have wristbands now where they color wristbands. Red means hey, I'm just don't touch me, don't come near me, keep your distance. Yellow means okay, well I'm open to having conversations or what have you, but of course within our precautionary, keeping those precautionary measures in place. And green means, yeah, I'm okay, yes, you can come hug me, but keep your face mask on, or whatever, and then keep your distance after that. So maybe a color-coded system just to let people know, hey, this is where I stand. So if you're uncomfortable speaking up for yourself or something like that, it's kind of a university-wide thing. Hey, if I'm wearing this color wristband, this is how I feel. Please respect where I'm at in this process. So just a suggestion.
Yeah, definitely. At the end of the day, like everyone should hold themselves and others, if you feel comfortable doing that, accountable. Like just remembering that we're still in a pandemic, and if you're not following the CDC guidelines, such as like wearing a mask, getting tested if you feel like you were exposed, take any other precautions that they recommend, with whoever you invite in in your space. Just make sure they follow those things as well. If you're living off campus, you still need to protect yourself as much as if you are staying on campus or staying at home. Like just checking in with friends, making sure that everybody is on the same page, because at the end of the day, we do want to really move past this whole situation so we can like get back to the normal and move away from what has become the new normal.
So for those of you guys listening, if you guys have any more questions, comments, or concerns, you can email the health department, which is husa.campushealth@gmail.com, or you can also head on over to meethusa.com and fill out the student help form.
And if you're at any time students are feeling overwhelmed and counseling on campus is not available, feel free to reach out to Peace of Mind Therapy LLC, which is my private practice. Again, my name is Jermaine Boston Graves. You can find my profile on psychologytoday.com. Jermaine is spelled with a J, Jermaine, Boston Graves, which is GRAV as in Victor, ES as in Sam. Or you can send me an email at peaceofmindtherapy24-7@hotmail.com. And peace is PEACE. So Peace of Mind Therapy, the number 24-7@hotmail.com. Thank you.
Okay, and like I said before, my name is Nellisha Leonce. I'm also the co-director of CNAHS Health and Wellness Department. Unfortunately, my other co-director, Selima Williams, she couldn't be here today. If you guys would like to have, follow up with any updates in regards to what CNAHS Student Council is doing, you can follow our Instagram at RiseCNAHS and at CNAHS Council. If you want to reach out to myself or Selima, my email, nelisha.leonce@bison.howard.edu. Selima, she's selima.williams@bison.howard.edu. If you're in CNAHS, you want to talk, you have any tips for the health and wellness department, we'd be happy to hear everything that you guys, all the feedback, we'd be happy to hear it.
Yeah, definitely all of this information as well as what I'm about to say will be linked in the description if we're on YouTube or Instagram, as well as if there's any informational sessions on whichever podcast streaming platform you guys are listening to. The last information I will be giving out is the University Counseling Services crisis line, which is 202-345-6709. And also they have a number that works between 9 a.m. and 4 p.m., which is 202-806-6870.
I just want to give a huge thanks to our panelists for coming out here today and speaking with us, and everyone who tuned in. Feel free to follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. And you can look out for more content by Howard University's Student Association and specifically us, Campus Health. So I just want to say thanks again, and I hope you guys all stay safe.
Thank you.
Thank you.